So it is, thank you, Kara.
You're welcome. Have a good meeting.
Have a good meeting. So, well, thank you. Right. It is 7:06. I'm going to call the meeting to order. And just see here, everybody. Okay, everybody needs to let in. So I'd like to call the meeting to order. I'm Deb Travis, the chair of the Community Board 8 Traffic and Transportation Committee. I have a few housekeeping items just in case there's anybody kind of new to this process. We'll be following, as a community board committee, we loosely follow Robert's Rules of Order. We will be following the agenda that was previously distributed. If we open a topic to general discussion, we ask that if you would like to speak, that you raise your hand and I will call on you. If you're not speaking, we ask that you keep yourself muted to prevent background noise from interrupting others. If you're on Zoom, to raise your hand, you will select reactions at the bottom of the screen. And if you change your name in Zoom to your actual name, it will assist us later on, just if entering minutes and stuff. You do not are not required in any way to put your name in the Zoom. If you're on the phone, *6 to mute and unmute, it will toggle, or *9 to raise your hand or to lower your hand. So I'm going to do a quick roll call. I, Deb Travis, are here. Kelly Buford.
Present.
Mary Ellen Gibbs.
I am present.
Chris Calhoun.
I'm here.
Ed Green.
I'm here. For some reason, my name's not popping up. I think I need to update my settings on Zoom, but I'm here.
Oh, I can see your name when I hover. So
Oh.
It's just your video is not, you have no video for whatever reason.
Yeah, no, I'm indisposed right now.
Okay. David Gelman. Not yet. And Georgia Santiago. Okay, not yet. As far as other community board members, Omar Murray, I think I saw you. And Camelia Tepelis.
Good evening, thank you.
Hey, good evening, good to see you. Are there any other community board 8 members on the call? Are there any elected officials or representatives from elected officials on the call? Any representatives from any agencies? I know Ray Poltonos is here from James Baldwin Outdoor Learning Center. All right. So to start off, I would like to start with the approval of the minutes of the meeting of April 20th, which were distributed to committee members ahead of the meeting. So does anybody have any changes that they would like? All right, no changes at all?
I do not have any.
Okay, great. So if there's no objections, I move to approve the minutes by unanimous consent. I don't think, do I need a second for that? Kelly, do you know if I need a second? Okay, I'll have a second just
Yes,
in case.
you need a second.
I just did.
Okay.
All right, there we go. We're good. Okay, great. So then the minutes of April 20th, 2022, Traffic and Transportation Committee have been unanimously approved. The chair's report. I just got a couple of things I wanted to just bring up as just kind of general news items. The first is the Major Deegan. We were notified by DEP that they will be, actually they just started work last week on the southbound Major Deegan. And the work will be going on for approximately 4 to 8 weeks total. The work consists of cleaning and the investigation of the outfall sewers along the highway. DEP will be closing one lane of the highway during this work, which will take place from 8 p.m. to 5 a.m. on weeknights, Monday night into Tuesday night through Friday night into Saturday. And it doesn't start until you get all the way down past the, all right, I'm have to pull, but I should have. It's all the way at the south. It's like over down by the Target is where the catchment is for us. And then it's going to be other catchments just south of that. I can look up the exact street if anybody wants to know. But that's kind of roughly where Yeah, it's kind of just below, just south of 225th Street, where it starts to come together. And it's not Sedgwick that it meets into, but it's there's a
Exterior.
little triangle there.
Exterior.
It's, yeah, thank you. Exterior Street. So that'll be where you'll start to see the reduction in lanes for the cleaning. And it's just to reduce flooding and to remove any debris and stuff that's in those catch basins. Any questions about that? I think it's kind of wonderful because it most likely, at least we've contributed at least in some sense to helping move that needle to get the water issues along the Major Deegan addressed. So if there's any small part that we played there, I think we've done a good job. Mayor Adams has announced that he's funding, he announced additional funding for the streets plan. He had committed $904 million over 5 years to advance the goals laid out in the New York City Streets Plan. You can download the streets plan from New York City DOT's website just by Googling New York City Streets Plan. It's their plan it's a 5-year plan that's required by legislation where they identify what their priorities are going to be. I think there's approximately 10 of them. It's a long document, but it's interesting if you're wondering what their focus is and where their priorities are. The plan includes green infrastructure, protected bike lanes, busways, and generally expanding pedestrian spaces like pedestrian plazas. MTA announced they were going to be adding 60 electric buses to the fleet. It's only 1% of the fleet, but we will be receiving some of them. So that should be actually kind of cool. The BX3, the BX10, the BX18, and the BX20 will all have some electric buses in it. And then these buses are going to charge at the Kingsbridge Depot when they're not in use. Any questions about either of those two things? Okay, great. Next thing, it was just really upsetting. It happened over the weekend. We had another pedestrian who was struck by a car at the crosswalk of Kapok in Johnson. So he's doing fine. He was just, his foot and leg was run over by a car coming down Kapok and making a left onto Johnson. And so I spoke to him briefly over the weekend. And in response, Laura and I sent a joint letter to DOT to insist that they expedite the installation of a traffic signal, which is the signal we already have a resolution and which DOT had scheduled for the fall. We've been kind of agitating to get that thing installed because, as you know, this is the same intersection. It's actually the exact same crosswalk where Ruth Mullen was struck by a bus last fall. So Laura and I put together a letter, and that went out today. I can read the letter. It literally just went out today, so I didn't get a chance to send it in advance. So I wanted to just take a moment and read it.
Deb, before you read the letter, was this accident, was there any contributory factors such as the fact that DOT had taken away a lot of the pedestrian walkway when they did the repaving of that intersection? So there was a big chunk of Johnson and Kapok on both sides that was blocked off with stanchions and rope, and people were not able to use the street. Pedestrians had to actually walk in the street and were not able to use that portion of the sidewalk because of the work that was being done there.
You're talking about the large orange kind of bollards that they put up because they were doing the work. I'm sure there's going to be legal stuff around this, and I wouldn't want to venture a guess as to causation. I know that the anybody who's in the crosswalk, because it's a stop sign.
No, I get that, but I just wanted to, I guess my rationale was he forced to be a little farther out in the street because DOT had that roped off, and that was roped off for some time. I'm sorry. No, go ahead.
No, you should finish. I was totally interrupting you.
They did the work, and it took them a while to remove those barriers. So that was really my point.
That was when I spoke to him I asked him really specifically whether he thought that if there had been a crosswalk or a signal there, which was the same ask we've had now for 8 months, if he thought that that would have made a difference, and he said yes, because the signal requires that the cars actually stop, which that stop sign, as much as it requires that you stop, it's become so few people actually stop for it. So that's why we thought that really just at least at minimum getting the traffic signal up would at least make this intersection a little bit more calm.
Okay.
Does that answer your does that answer your question?
No, but okay, it's okay. I'm just glad that he's okay. We're on the road
Yeah.
to recovery.
Yeah, me too. So I'll read the letter really quick, and then I guess we can move on. So over the weekend, another resident, so dear interim Borough Commissioner Kalb, over the weekend, another resident in our community, Craig Sachs, was struck by a vehicle at the intersection of Capock Street and Johnson Avenue as he crossed the street legally within the crosswalk. Thankfully, he was not critically injured. However, it brings home the basic fact that 8 months after Ruth Mullen was tragically struck and killed by a city bus in this exact crosswalk, a traffic signal still has not been installed. We understand from previous correspondence with you that the Department of Transportation has been working through a backlog caused by the COVID epidemic, and we are sympathetic. We also appreciate that channeling was installed to attempt to slow traffic and that lighting concerns have been addressed. However, it continues to be true that more people glide through this intersection without stopping than come to a complete stop. It is also indisputable that this intersection is situated near 2 bus stops and experiences regular pedestrian traffic, many who are seniors or have children. And it is also not a matter of debate that this intersection is in the middle of a hill and that traffic is generally coasting at a considerable speed when they reach it from Capock Street. For these reasons, it is not tenable for the public to have to wait for such a critical piece of infrastructure any longer. We have waited 8 months, and but for the grace of God, could have lost another member of our community. We ask that you expedite the installation of this traffic signal immediately in order to prevent further injuries or worse. Mayor Adams and Commissioner Rodriguez have made intersection safety for pedestrians the highest priority. We call on you to follow their lead and remedy this dangerous intersection immediately. And then we signed that. So hopefully we'll, I believe also the councilman's office has reached out as well to try to expedite the installation of the traffic signal. And so hopefully we'll get some redress. And so I guess I want to move on next, if there's no other questions, to the street activity permit that the James Baldwin Outdoor Learning Center has submitted for their farmers market. So request is for a partial sidewalk closure of the closed roadway that's just north of the DeWitt Clinton High School campus. It would be a closure for Saturdays beginning June 18th and through November 29th. And the timing I've got so far would be set up at 8 a.m., the event starting at 10 a.m., and then the event end and breakdown at 6. So Ray Pultanas is here, I think, to kind of just talk us through what this would mean. Ray, the floor is yours.
No, that would be Al Gore referring to the 2000 election. I'll take it down to 0, select again. The vice president who said for 1600. Fellow Hoosier Bobby Knight told me this. He says there is nothing that a good defense cannot beat a better offense.
Ray, are you there?
Who is James Well? That's correct.
That is Miriam, okay. Thank you, Miriam. Ray, are you able to, I see you're unmuted and
He appears to be frozen, Deb.
Since he looks frozen.
okay.
Deb, do you want me
Looks
to
like he's
text him?
gonna, it looks like he's re-signing. He just disappeared, so maybe he's coming back.
Yeah, sorry about that. I don't know how that
There you
happened.
are.
I got a
It always
call,
happens.
and I think it
Right.
interfered. But yeah, thanks for having me. And again, this would be the 3rd year of our farmers market. We started during COVID in August of 2020 at a time when really it was just much safer to shop for produce outdoors. And so we've been embraced by the community very much. And this year, we also, during the market, I don't know how many of you have been there, but we do a lot of arts and educational programming, especially with a lot of young children, a lot of parents with children. And our opening on June 18th will also be our Juneteenth celebration. So we'll have my wife and I are singing with the Jasa Choir, so we will have some, live performance and music, open mic, and we participate in the Farmers Market nutritional program, so we'll accept FMNP coupons as well as SNAP and EBT benefits. We have 3 farmers this year. And one from Connecticut, who actually specializes in corn. So, in the middle of summer, that is probably one of the best places, I think, in the Bronx to get your dozens of ears. And but we're also having a farm that was started by some ex-Bronx Green Up, which Jody knows. Kadisha and Jessica started the Iridescent Earth Collective. So they will be, our second farmer. And we also welcome My Oh My Farms, which is a microgreens farm right here in the Bronx. And I'd be happy to answer any questions. It's a part of the, there is no street closure because the street's already been closed. This is the ramp, what used to be a ramp onto Marshall Parkway in front of DeWitt Clinton High School. We do ask for a partial closure just because, the sidewalk, but there's still full access for people, walking through. But I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have.
All right, thank you. Does anybody have any questions right off the bat?
How many vendors do you plan on having there?
We've averaged about 10 to 15 vendors each market. So, our first year, it's obvious that there was a greater demand. During the height of COVID. Last year, because of some of the difficulties that we had, with DeWitt Clinton High School and access to the gardens that I started that Chiara was talking about, we started last year's market actually with a protest. As a result, it was a little, some people felt like the market had closed, but we did lose some vendors and some customers. However, we've kind of, over the winter, we've really tried to build our audience again by holding monthly events during the off season. And we did a winter jubilee and a spring jubilee at the Amalgamated Co-op. And so that was one of the ways, and we also just recently visited the Tenants Association meeting at Tracy Towers. So we're really trying to pitch the local community to become more active in the market.
Thank you.
Do you think you'll be able to get any of those vendors back that you lost?
Oh yes, absolutely. I think a lot of it depends on how many people pass through the market. So we like to at least have 100, 150 people walk through, and we're also trying to make it easier for vendors to not feel like they have to come every week, but establishing for instance, Zambo Aroma as a healthcare products. They if they came once a month, they would be able to kind of build their customer base and have pre-orders and things like this. So we're playing around with different ways to keep our vendor number up. But meanwhile, we continue to offer a lot of program. Unlike a lot of other markets, people don't necessarily pass through. They come and they stay. There's with all our educational and programming, we did a whole month devoted to insects last year, September, culminating in a insect parade with the kids. It's called Insectageddon. We're trying to, each month this year will be a different theme. And we have a lot of very dedicated volunteers and teaching artists that we're using to just make a great gathering place for the local community and their families.
Thank you, Mary Ellen.
Hi, a man after my own heart, that you're singing choral music at the event.
Yes.
I sang with the Lehman College Chorus for a long time with Dr. B, her teacher's pet.
Ah.
And I was also the president of the Parkchester Chorus. So it's nice to see choral music making its way back. I wish that you'd see more of that in schools, because it builds self-esteem to the children and everything. Because I've worked with theater with the kids and everything, and it's so wonderful to see that. And
Great.
and good to see more markets popping up like that, because it's important. Like, I didn't get the whole concept of eating healthy till I was older, so
Yeah.
the more it's introduced, the better. I like to see it's handy to get to people. So
Yeah.
thank you very much.
Thanks, Mary. This weekend, actually, on Saturday, we attended the spring recital at Lehman, which involved the chorus. It was beautiful. They did Mozart's Requiem and other items. By the way, and Deborah knows this very well. The market also is right next to Meg's Garden and Edible Forest on campus. So we do a lot of food education, basically. And we have, what's very popular at our market is our homemade pizza. I'm also a baker. I make the vegetarian specials, but we also have a gluten-free vegan chef who was a student of mine, actually, from DeWitt Clinton, class of 1999. His name is Baba Femi Oyedun, and he makes, delicious pizzas, gluten-free and vegan. So we want to make that a more regular part of the market, really food education and food demos.
Well, and I will say, as a person who lives near the reservoir, and I have my own volunteer group, Joe Park Friends and Neighbors, we have a fair number of volunteers who come to the market, and I think it's such a valuable community resource. It's really the children's reading hours, some of the events have just been very moving. And it is really wonderful to have a fresh source of food. And then all the work that you did of providing food for people who didn't have access to food, particularly during 2020, I thought was very inspiring.
Yeah, thanks for mentioning that. We pride ourselves on our mutual aid work. So we purchased hundreds of pounds, of vegetables after the market from our farmers to redistribute to the friendly fridges. And we've continued to, during our winter and spring jubilees, we also made additional meals for local soup kitchens and the friendly fridges. So, yeah, we really, I think we came at a time, and we just really want to help improve the health of our Bronx neighbors. I mean, that's part of our mission.
Yeah, and I can also speak to the quality of the pizza, because I had a couple of folks who went and purchased pizzas for our volunteers when we were out weeding a couple of Saturdays ago. During the Jubilee at Amalgamated, they went over and got us pizzas and cookies. It was delicious. It was like the best thing ever. So thank you so much for that. So are there any other questions or comments? I feel like we can call the vote, unless anybody has any concerns. Okay, so I did a rough draft of a resolution. So I'm open to any and all changes. So whereas the James Baldwin Outdoor Learning Center presented their plan in support of a partial sidewalk closure for a weekly farmer's market on the closed slip lane off of Goulden Avenue at Sedgwick Avenue on Saturdays from June 18th, 2022 through October 29th, 2022, between the hours of 8 a.m. and 6 p.m., including setup and breakdown time. Whereas this farmer's market has occurred at this location during the summer since August 2022 without any community complaints. Whereas the JBOLC Farmers Market is a valuable source for the Kingsbridge Heights community of locally grown fresh vegetables and fruit, and features activities that include healthy cooking demos, story reading for children, poetry readings, and music performances. Therefore, be it resolved that the Community Board 8 Traffic and Transportation Committee supports the street activity permit for the partial sidewalk closure on the closed slip lane off of Goulden Avenue requested by the James Baldwin Outdoor Learning Center Farmers Market. Ray, you got your hand raised?
Yes, there's just one correction on the second paragraph. We've been in operation since August of 2020.
Oh, 2020, yes.
Yeah,
Good catch, thank you.
it would be hard to have started 2 months from now.
He's exceptional. I don't, Thank you, good catch. Any other changes? David, I thought I saw your hand up.
Same comment.
Same thing?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so I would like to call the vote. Do I have a second to call the vote? All right,
Second.
David. All those opposed to this this resolution, please raise your hand. All those abstaining? All right, then I will have assumed the rest are in favor. If I may. So that means, there it is. So that means Kelly, Mary Ellen Gibbs, Chris Calhoun, Ed Green, David Gelman, and Deb Travis voted in favor. Speak now or forever hold your peace.
Sylvia Alexander is on the call.
Sylvia is not in the committee.
Okay, thank you.
Oh yeah, no, it's fine. And then Georgia is still not on the call, correct? Just make sure I don't see any phones. Okay.
No.
Okay, great. So the request is approved, resolution is approved. One piece of important detail is that you will notice that June 18th is the first Saturday. Our next board meeting is after that. And so I checked with the office and they checked with the agency, and that we can submit our resolution. They'll submit the resolution to the city to let them know that it's passed the committee. And then once it goes to the board vote, the board resolution will then also go after. So that's what the process will be. So any questions about that? Okay. All right, great. Well, thank you so much, Ray, for coming on the call. I appreciate
Hey,
it.
you're going to Hollywood. It's like the
Yeah.
American Island.
Thanks very much.
Have a really wonderful summer. I look forward to some more pizza.
Yeah,
Can
right.
I-
I'm gonna have to come by. Fellow choral person.
May I just take a couple of minutes? Just there's one other thing that I want to raise, and I don't know if it's out of order, but I was
Is
just
it new business or is it related to the
somewhat.
farmer's
It's
market?
just related to, yes, it's related to the DOT pollinator garden that is there, towards the street, towards Goulden and Sedgwick, away from the school. I just was wondering, just out of concern for our market goers, last year it was unfortunately mowed down while it was in full bloom. And I was just wondering if there's any way that we might reach out to DOT who owns that space, you know, to prevent that from happening again.
We can certainly have the office follow up. I mean, and just request it, and then kind of keep our fingers crossed. Usually it's the opposite problem. So, but yeah, we can certainly just, you know, have put in the request.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you so
no
much.
problem at all.
Thanks,
Yeah,
everybody.
totally. Great,
And
thank you,
hope to see
Ray.
you at the market.
Any
See you at the
particular
market.
time especially good for getting pizza?
11 to 2.
Thank you.
It's well worth it.
Okay, everybody.
I just wouldn't want to be there too early or too late.
True.
Pollinator, okay. All right, so next up is the paving. So here, I'm gonna share screen again. So really the purpose is that, so in the past, DOT, the norm for DOT was to submit all of the paving requests at this time of the year, all at once. And then at the beginning of this year, Keith Kalb asked us to submit them as we went. And so we've been submitting them as we went, but I thought it would be helpful because sometimes we get some of the same questions about certain blocks. And so I thought it would just be helpful to kind of go through some of the bigger ones, just give updates on them. And then if there's any that are missing from this list, you can add them and then make sure everything is submitted over the summer. So Miriam, I see your hand is up. Do you have something? Maybe I'll go through these first, if that's okay. And then we can come back to questions.
Okay.
Okay. So the first one is a Henry Hudson Parkway West, Henry Hudson Parkway East. The metal edging along the side near 231st Street for Henry Hudson Parkway West. Henry Hudson Parkway East is near Fairfield. The DOT had actually just got back to us today saying that they're going to go and look at it, but that they think that they'll be able to get it addressed. So they do have a crew assigned to it now. So that's an update from today. So it's not updated here on the sheet. Let's see. So we had a request into the office for deteriorated asphalt. And this is on the greenway that is inside of Van Cortlandt Park, just north of the Van Cortlandt Park Golf House, to Mosholu Extension. So it kind of wraps around. And we actually don't have an update on that one yet. It's been kind of in limbo for a bit, trying to figure out who is responsible for it, whether it's a parks thing or whether it's a DEP thing or a DOT thing. But that one we are still kind of working on and trying to get that piece of pavement improved. The 242nd and Greystone sinkhole, that sinkhole has been there since August. You'll remember it, the committee will probably remember it because this is the intersection where we reviewed for an enhanced crosswalk. And at the time when they were supposed to do the work to put the crosswalk in, the sinkhole opened up. So the most recent update I have is from March, and they were waiting to complete. So DEP was waiting for Con Ed to complete some electrical work, and then DEP was going to go back and do work. I was over there a couple of weeks ago, and it was still open. DEP has to do all of their work before then DOT can come back and make adjustments to it. So that's still in process. But yeah, that's still in process. 255th and Palisade. So this one is one that's been going since last summer. It took a while to figure out who actually owns 255th Street. So it's a sewer easement. We eventually did figure out that it's a sewer easement. It's owned by New York City Transit. On what, 5/11, they sent a letter to the board office sent a letter to the adjacent property owner to address overgrowth at the request of New York City Transit. And then New York City Transit has told us that it's a bigger undertaking than they expected. And so they thought they were gonna be able to just pave it, and it's not possible. It's not an easy thing. So it's been temporarily patched and it's a project and they're actively working on it. So that was a relatively recent update. Actually, it's much more recent than 225 because that came at the same time as it's a May thing. So that's 255th and Palisades. So hopefully the property owner will trim back their shrubs, and then New York State Transit's working on the pavement itself. 246th between Independence Avenue and Henry Hudson Parkway. We got a request for paving for that. This one is interesting because it has trees in the middle of it, and it seems to be the north side that was most urgently in need of paving. It's considered an unfinished road, and so that one is a particularly challenging one because according to DOT, it's kind of they considered a 100-foot wide continuous strip. And so we're having a hard time getting the north side of it paved separately from the south side, which is actually not too bad. But we're still kind of trying to work through that one with DOT, just a little bit more complicated. Independence Avenue between 246th and Dodgewood. This is a privately owned road. So this one, Councilman Dinowitz was able to expedite getting the potholes addressed. But because it's privately owned, DOT has said that they're not going to pave it. The problem is that the potholes have gotten so bad, the surface of the road is quite bad, but that it really does need to be fully repaved. But it would need to be the responsibility of the property owners along that road. So so far, the property owners have been, at least the property owners that have reached out to the office so far, have been reticent to have DOT get involved with taking it over or owning it for just out of concern of losing, the ability to kind of make decisions about this road and having DOT decide for themselves what they would want to do with it. So at the moment, DOT says they will continue to fill potholes. However, that it's in very, very poor condition.
Deb, can I interrupt you for a second and ask a question on that? Is this a public road that we're talking about?
Well, it seems like a public road when you're on it, but it is privately owned. So it is a through street. It doesn't have a sign on it that says it's privately owned. And maybe that's part of the answer, is just to make it more clear that it's privately owned so that there's fewer people who drive through on it. But it's not owned by DOT or by the city.
Okay.
This is there's actually several roads that are like this in Riverdale, including other parts of Independence Avenue.
Thank you.
And something for the residents to keep in mind is that frankly, if it were to be completely repaved, it would become a shortcut. I've driven it many times and most people avoid it because it's in horrible shape, but it would be a nice shortcut to Palisade Avenue.
Mm-hmm.
Which I don't think they would like.
Jody, I saw your hand went up. Did you have a question about or a comment about one of these things?
No, I was just gonna what I was gonna say answered the question Ed was gonna ask about many roads are not vested. And they're private roads, but they're not marked as such.
Yeah. It seems like it would be helpful to mark them as private, just to make it a little bit more clear to folks what's going on. But
you can
that's
drive on some of them, and that's going to come up on the next one, which was also my hand is up for the next one.
It just seems that if there was any type of liability occurred, that would fall on the residents then, not the city on these streets.
It does kind of seem like it's a vulnerability for sure, a liability. So the next one is one that is semi-related to, so Jody, when was this, Jody? It was like
October.
Yeah, I've got it as back in last fall, we had the whole issue of the sinkhole on Edson Avenue that Jody advocated for, and the DEP has been working on. And I think that they correct Jody, I'm sure you'll correct me if I'm wrong, that they had addressed the the underlying issue, and that we just had a separate issue or a separate request for paving for Palisade all the way around, from Palisade to Johnson, but which is essentially the whole circle. Does that sound, so the
Yeah,
request,
so-
the response that we got from them was, you will be pleased to know that it is, the upper roadway is scheduled for resurfacing during fiscal year 24, which is the fall, usually.
My hand's up for this one.
Yes,
May I?
yeah, so I'm finished now, please, yes.
So I am not pleased to hear it's fiscal year 24 because, again, Edsel Avenue is one of those roads that is partially city owned. There's a section that I believe is MTA owned. It is that edge. I don't know if you remember, Deb, when I did the live night video stream of walking through it, that the edge of that road is probably now eroded out, maybe 2 feet and about 8 inches deep. And I'm just concerned that with the parking on the other side of the street, that emergency vehicles in another few months with any heavy rains are gonna fall into that ditch. So is there anything we can do? It's the section once you pass the pedestrian overpass and then you are, headed to go around the turn into the parking lot. Is there any way to get that part fixed? The rest of it needs paving because there's a billion patches from other sinkholes. So is there a way to get that edge expedited? I mean, you can see the cobblestones from when streets were cobblestones.
Right. Well, so I mean, if it's that we're losing the width because it's been undermined, then I feel like that we should try to, get it fixed as like an emergency repair, right? It's not really a regular paving issue. It's a more of the street falling away. That's what it sounds like from what you're just describing.
Yeah,
Is
it's
that
a
accurate?
deteriorating edge.
Yeah.
What,
Well, let's
do you
let's
need
we
anything
can-
from me?
At the moment, we don't need anything from you. I mean, if you want to take a picture of that exact section, that would be great, because that way Kira will have it. But we've got what's nice about having the log number is we'll just keep it attached to the log number and then say, listen, this is actually getting much worse. We need this, because if we can get it into fiscal year 23, that would be this, that would be this year.
Yeah.
And also we've requested the list for fiscal year 23. They must have a list. And so, so we just know what's actually already, on something that they're going to be doing. So I would like to know kind of what their priorities are, and I can give the list back to the committee once we get it. But yeah, I'll take that as a follow-up item to just see if Kira can press on this one in particular, since the street's actually deteriorating and falling away.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no, of course. Miriam, I know your hand's up and other folks have gone, so why don't you hop in and then I can move on to the next thing.
Yes, I thank you. I sent you photographs and I sent them to Councilman Dinowitz, and the street right in front of 666, which is Fieldstone Lodge, under the Henry Hudson overpath. It is horrible. The potholes were so deep, and this is an accident waiting to happen because people are avoiding the potholes, which, by the way, they were filled, but now they're bumps instead of potholes. And people are avoiding it by going onto oncoming traffic. It is an accident waiting to happen. Buses go by all the time. This is a bus route. And I keep sending 311s and they filled them up with big lumps of tar and rocks, and they fly into the sidewalk. I have been drenched. I've been hit by stones. It is really, really unacceptable, and it is dangerous. And someone should come and look at this street. It is horrendous, and it's right in front of a nursing home.
So you're talking about the stretch of Capoc that's right before Independence, correct?
It's between Independence and Knowles, but doesn't get to Knowles. They fixed Knowles.
Right.
From the bridge
Right.
to Knowles, it's fine. They got there, they stopped, and they left this, it is unbelievable. And what people are doing, and you know, they race by, the Cape has become a racing strip. They race by and they don't want to hit the bumps, so they go into oncoming traffic. There are buses, there's everything going on in there.
Okay.
Nobody
we-
comes and looks.
Okay, well, we've got it on the, we've got it on the list, so we'll follow up on that one as well. Like all of these, we're gonna just do a refresh as soon as Kira and the board office gets on the other side of the board meeting. So we'll continue to bug at them about it until we actually have a date.
Yeah, someone from Dinowitz's office said 2020, on December of 2023. By then, I would like to see this.
So fiscal year 24.
This
Right.
is incredible.
Mhm. Okay. All right, so we'll check on that one. All right, thank you.
I really,
Yeah, no, absolutely. The pictures you sent were just awful. Here, I can show I can pull them up in case the committee is interested. I know what ones you're talking about.
thank you. I keep sending pictures and 311 and nothing happens.
Well, to be fair, I've submitted several 311s and they have, as you said, filled the potholes. But it's pretty clear that it actually needs some more serious work. It may have to do with its being a bit of a valley under a bridge, who knows? But it's constantly repaired, pothole repairs. It's been repaved probably about 3 years ago. But some tells me there's something with the understructure, because there was a major rehab of that underpass probably 10 years ago. And some tells me, and they did the walls as well. Some tells me there's something wrong underneath.
But I don't think the street has anything to do with the walls. The streets, they did come and they filled them, but now they're lumps. So people
I
don't,
understand that. I'm saying the understructure, probably from when they did the whole of Capoc from Knowles to Independence and the walls, like 10 years ago, something probably underneath was not done properly, because it does seem to deteriorate badly quickly.
it's a very,
Here's the street that Miriam's talking about. I don't know why the picture is so zoomed in my email, but this is you can see the deterioration from the
this is
water.
after it was paved, the holes were filled. This is after. There were
Right.
huge holes, and this is how it was repaired.
Right. So, and you can see a lot of this is stormwater, just water running right down. So, okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, totally. Thank you. Let's see here. Find the sheet again. Alrighty, so we got Edsel, so Kingsbridge Terrace, from Kingsbridge Road to West 229th Street. That has been approved for the fiscal 24 season, for milling and resurfacing. Independence Avenue from Bradley Terrace to Capoc. It is not vested to the city of New York, and therefore is not eligible for resurfacing, and they're gonna do their usual thing of filling potholes, but it's not owned by the city. West 230th from Broadway to Riverdale Avenue. That has been added to the fiscal year 24 milling and resurfacing lists, provided there are no conflicts. Broadway between 230th and 225th Street. DOT is going to inspect it and then we'll take necessary repairs. But so that's in the inspection phase. So we'll hopefully get an update and some actually what their schedule is for that. Johnson/Irwin between 230th and Capoc. It has been put on the fiscal year 23 milling and paving. Fiscal year 23 begins in June. So most of the paving will start sometime in August, September. Here's the 666 Capoc that we were just talking about. These were a bunch of paving requests that I put in fairly recently following the Riverdale Avenue conversation. You probably remember that the Main Street Alliance and several other, lots of folks we got feedback from in the office talked about other streets that were not in good shape. And so I reached out to them with this list. I did a walk around of the area, kind of collected any suggestions from folks, and then gave this list to Main Street Alliance to make sure this was captured kind of all of their blocks. So we've got Riverdale Avenue between the city line and West 254th. So that was brought up several times on the call. Particularly the parking kind of bus side, curbside is in fairly poor condition. Oh wait, I shoved that one in. I'll do that one next. So Sycamore between West 252nd and West 254th, Independence Avenue between West 261st and Spalding, Arlington Avenue between West 254th and West 252nd, West 261st between Riverdale Ave and Palisade Ave, West 259th Street between Netherland Ave and Arlington, West 254th between Riverdale Ave and Palisade. So the process is that the DOT will go and investigate, and then they have their own schedule, and they will know when it was last paved, and that generally a fixed amount of time has to have passed since it was last paved. Otherwise, they essentially do just patchwork. A lot of these streets were very, very badly deteriorated, and a lot of them see the same kind of water damage Miriam's talking about that she's seeing at 666 Capoc. So I think the biggest risk to these not getting on the list are that some aspect of them may be private, and we'll have to figure out once we hear back from DOT if they reject the whole stretch, but only part of it's private, or if all of it's private, or they accept it. So we'll have to kind of work through that. We do think that some parts of Arlington Avenue may be private below West 252nd Street. So that one's also kind of on the radar, that there may be other pieces of it that are private. So Jody.
I wanted to go back to I put my hand up for the Bradley Terrace Independence Avenue one. That is,
okay.
So last I
think you put that one on here.
Yeah, it's not vested to the city, but I couldn't figure out who it was vested to. So
right.
And it's an issue that also is similar to what Miriam is talking about right around the corner. Towards Knowles Crescent, is the sides of it are all torn up, and there's a big, luckily there's cars parked there, so you don't get splashed by traffic. But I think this has to do with the crowning issue, that these roads have all kind of flattened out and become valleys, as Dave mentioned. So, and especially in this part where everything is very steep. So, we've discussed this at E&S, is there a way to have some sort of a bigger picture view of these things than pave them in 24?
I mean, do you mean like, because when we talk to DOT, this has been kind of they say that they're crowning. They're saying that they follow the standard procedures, and it's, we're certainly not an expert in it. However, I mean, you'll see there's we have another request specifically, and maybe this is a good test case, is that at Capoc and Palisade, we're pursuing, like, trying to get them to very consciously crown. Like, when you're repaving it, we see you're repaving on Palisade, we want to make sure that this is getting properly crowned. And for folks who are on the call who or maybe aren't familiar with the term, it just means that the center is higher so that the water goes down to the sides. It's a shaping of the street so that the water goes to the catch basins, which is just really important on Capoc for sure, because there's such a high volume of water that runs down it. And it's the same thing over by Edsel Avenue and Palisade, because of the
Independence.
steepness.
And Independence.
And Independence, sure. I mean, anywhere where there's you have that real kind of real steep grade. I mean, you see it at 254th too. I mean, that whole street though will be part of that capital sidewalk project. So hopefully we'll see a lot of change there and improvement.
Part of that is private too, 254th, towards Sycamore, near Sycamore. That's private, I believe.
Really?
But the other part of it is, I know we're talking about repaving, which in DOT language, that might mean the full street. Is there a way for them to just like asphalt the edges where these holes are? Like where Miriam was talking about that's where all the emergency vehicles that go to the Fieldston Lodge Nursing Home are parking. They drive up there, they jump up on the curb, they jump down off the curb. Like it's a lot of wear and tear there. Could we just get an asphalt patch there? Because that puddle is probably like 5 feet wide. You cannot walk on the sidewalk during a rainstorm or after without getting drenched, even when cars go slow. So is repaving the wrong term? What should we be asking for? Something different is my question.
So you're saying that directly in front of Capoc, 666 Capoc, it's not that there's because I was going off really based off of the picture and kind of recognizing where it was. But you're saying that there's actually essentially a pothole that's on the edge that is collecting water. Yeah, because I mean, I think, that with like Riverdale Avenue, you see that real deterioration along the curb line, but that it's the middle of it's not so great either. And so it seemed to make a lot more sense just to have them just do the whole thing and do the crown correctly. With this one, because there seems to be a drainage issue. I mean, we can certainly ask for a patch if there's a particular part that is washed out. But it seems like a lot of times when we ask for patches, then we get the patch, and then it's, to Miriam's point, it's gone again, and it's all damaged by next time the plow comes through in the winter, or it all breaks apart.
This is every bus in Riverdale makes that turn and goes on the street that I sent you the picture. If you patch with the stuff that's putting down, it lasts absolutely no time. It needs to be completely redone in order to have that street. It is a bus route. Every single bus goes by there. It is never going to, you pour some tar and some rocks in there, which fly onto this. I almost got hit by one the other day. You either get soaked or hit by stones. You can't walk on the sidewalk.
Yeah,
Right.
It's a pedestrian hazard is my point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is a hazard.
It isn't a road that's in bad damage that needs to be repaved. This is a pedestrian hazard. You cannot walk, you cannot use that sidewalk when it has rained and there are puddles without getting wet, muddy, or injured. So is there another term that we can use or another way to leverage it to get that fixed until they can repave the whole road?
I feel like what Miriam is pointing to, though, is that if they just tar it or if they just patch it, that it'll break apart. That's the stuff that's flying all over the place.
That's it.
I mean, I'm 100% like, whatever's practical. It doesn't have to be pretty, but it seems like the temporary patch is just going to allow them to tick off the box that it's been patched. And then maybe what they're trying to do now is to try to do some sort of short-term thing, but it's falling apart right away.
Because they're just
This
doing
is the-
spot patching. I'm wondering if there's a way to do like a 20-foot, 30-foot curb to curb flat asphalt patch. You know what I mean? Not like a spot patch, but a big curb to curb piece of asphalt just there until they can mill the road and do it. Because the next storm, it's just gonna get worse and worse, and we're gonna end
Right.
up with sinkholes that you know how long that's taking to get those repaired. And as Miriam said, this is a high traffic road, and Edsel Avenue and Independence Avenue going down to Bradley is also a bus route. So
Right.
like these aren't like, oh, it's bumpy when my car goes over it. These are public transit routes as well.
Right. Right. Okay. Camila, you've been patient with your hand up.
Thank you.
Thank you, thank
Yeah,
you.
of course.
First of all, I want to fully back up Miriam and Jody on that intersection that is used by, you know, all express buses, school buses that weren't mentioned, you know, the Hudson Link, whatever it's called. And often you have situations when you see ambulances or EMT vehicles stationed temporarily with their lights blinking in front of the nursing homes, and all these large vehicles, particularly express buses, trying really, really hard to turn around. And I do feel that if there is a way to prioritize this should be definitely at the top of the list for the request. But what I wanted to add was, since we were on the topic of sinkhole, to report myself one that we already reported also to 311, and we're working on on KPOC, the very entrance to North Crescent, immediately across from there's a dry cleaner store and a liquor store. There is an actual like sinkhole, and we had DOT, I mean the board of the building adjacent to it. So we called DEP, which inspected it, and sadly for us found out that it's likely caused by the extension of the pipe that comes from our laundry room to the main. So we are responsible for it. But just to say that how this little thing, because we were aware of sort of the denivellation in the road, so but it actually became a hole, and I think the concerns of Miriam are very, very valid. We got like already 4 bids, and like every other bid goes $20,000 higher. So this will be very, if those patches that are so deteriorated do become sinkhole, it becomes a very significant cost if they end up being determined as being somehow related to the building right next to. So just wanted to kind of report that for this whole sinkhole that I reported. Yeah.
So just, Camila, just to stop you for a sec. Which block is this?
So this is the entrance, the very entrance of North Crescent, going left from KPOC. Yes, there's that like triangle.
Okay.
Probably the address is like the laundromat, you know, on North Crescent. Yeah. Yeah. And we have it flagged. I mean, we have one of those like boulders, so that, and there are some cars that park immediately close to it.
So where is it? It's here.
Can you zoom in?
Here's KPOC, right here.
Yes, it's right there. It's right there. Where do you see the building? At the corner of the building. I'm not seeing where your mouse is, but it's right by the big tree, centrally located in the picture.
Right here. It's right here.
I'm not seeing yours.
Where I just dropped my
I'm
pin.
on a phone, but.
Oh, okay. So it's where the slip lane is, going from KPOC onto Knowles Crescent.
That is correct. Yes, yes. On the right side, it's right where there are the stairs going to the big building. On the right side.
And
but
this
it's
is
an
a
actual
pothole?
hole in the ground. Yeah, it's
okay. So it's
sinkhole.
directly in front of what is this?
The cleaners, the dry cleaners.
60
and the
Knowles
liquor
Crescent.
store. Correct. Yes. So yeah. So anyway, all this to say, I mean, the building will repair it, but it does feel, since we have a steep slope, it does feel like there's something, like David is saying, kind of a little bit too how to say, mobile, happening underground. And this is the second time we have an issue with pipes, by the way. Last summer we had a gigantic pipe bursting or failing or being cracked that we also had to pay over $100,000 to repair, that really that overspilled into KPOC for like a couple of days. So I don't know, it does feel like there are some things happening, and I don't know if we are enough on the DOT radar. So just wanted to add this element, but again, we will fix the sinkhole, but just for future reference. And if we can help the issue that Miriam and Jody spoke to, would be appreciated. Thank you.
All right. And then, let's see what else. So we went through these. So Kingsbridge Terrace, there was a request for a speed hump, which you may remember from last fall. Terrence Lindsay put in a request for it. So the DOT has said that they will complete a study and they'll get back to us in October of next year. So at some point. Van Cortlandt, relining. So they did the paving on Van Cortlandt Avenue South between Broadway and Sedgwick, but did not put the lines back. And so this is a pretty common thing. And so we put in a request for the lines to be returned. I don't think they're there. It's so funny. I was just there today and I forgot to look, but they are scheduled to be happening any minute now. We got a request for, so there was a request for the bike lane on Broadway to be repaved, which it was. And when that happened, we also got a request for Broadway itself to be repaved. So that request is also in the office waiting to get a DOT log ID. So that's Broadway between 240th to City Line. That was the request that came in. I just got the Knowles Crescent one, and then Johnson Avenue between Cambridge and 233rd, the 233rd Step Street and West 235th. It's like a kind of little section right in there. We had a request from a constituent that said the speed hump disappeared after that was paved. So we put in a request and they're inspecting that location, and they'll restore it during the upcoming implementation season. I think speed humps are normally kind of a spring thing with the lining, the same kind of roughly the same time. And then we had a couple of things they did do. They put the speed hump back on Dickinson, on Van Cortlandt, between Van Cortlandt Park South and Sedgwick. That was after they paved that. And then the lines were restored also on Dickinson when they did that work. And then we had the Edsel Avenue sinkhole. So anything else here that anybody wants to bring up, or anything new that we should add to the list to follow up on? Yeah, Chris.
In my transversing the community, I made some notes of areas that need pavement marking, and can take note of this. At the Broadway Bridge, the Marble Hill side, there's no line delineation. It's all practically gone. So 3 lanes is just one big cluster mess over there in both directions.
This is actually on Broadway, right?
On Broadway.
Coming off the Broadway.
When you go into the Inwood side of the bridge, it's perfectly lined when you get into Manhattan and Inwood. You come into Marble Hill, going north or south, there's no line delineation, even going up all the way to 230th, nothing.
Okay, so 230th?
Yeah. So from 225th to 230th, there's nothing on Broadway. In conjunction with that, there is no yellow double line on Broadway from 230th all the way up to 239th Street.
Oh, yeah.
At 231st Street and Broadway.
Wait, we'll stop you, Chris, for a second. So, yeah, going too fast. Wait, so this is a Broadway from when to where? That has no double line?
230th to 239th Street on Broadway. There's no yellow double line, the entire length.
Okay.
You can see specks of where it once was, but it's non-existent pretty much.
And it's, okay, got it. Perfect. Got it. All right, next one.
The crosswalk at 231st Street needs a facelift.
231st between what and what?
Broadway, right there in the intersection underneath the L, right at the stop.
Okay.
And
no crosswalk lines. Okay.
Unrelated, I don't know what 235th and Johnson's gonna look like after the trench and massive construction over there, but that's probably gonna need a lot of TLC after they're out of there. I know it's an obstacle course to drive that area.
Does it need to be paved?
Well, there's some big construction job going on there in the middle of the street in front of Liebman's and Key Food, and I don't know what way they're gonna leave it.
Right, that's a good call out. Because I don't know when that construction, I know exactly what you're talking about. They've completely dug up 235th Street. Okay.
The last thing was a couple of people came up to me trying to get a speed hump on Adrian Avenue.
Okay.
And that's
So
all I
that-
have for you.
So there's no existing approved speed hump on Adrian Avenue, right?
No.
So that one we could do one of two ways. We could either like put it on the agenda for discussion in June or in September, or they can just submit the request for the speed hump, and then the office can check in on it.
Do whatever you
after-
think's better. I just wanted to get it out there.
Yes, yeah, speed humps are usually not that controversial. So usually it's fine for them just to go to the DOT website and submit it, and then just send the number over to Kira afterwards. That's usually the best way to go.
Okay, then I'll relay that.
Okay, all right, cool.
Thank you.
David. Yeah, no, thank you. This is great. David.
Yes, in some budget discussions this morning, we were talking about step streets and whatnot, and step streets are somewhat of an anomaly in the Bronx, mostly in our district. And like our having a paving request list, I think that we should try to talk with DOT about, and maybe sanitation as well, frankly, about having a step street list. It's a little bit longer term, not quite on point here, but there were, as you remember, we had many step street repair requests. And again, I think relative to the Bronx and probably much of the city, have quite a bit more step streets than almost anywhere. So it's something that we should probably be working with DOT to get the ability to report on step streets as well as a list of paving requests.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like we're in a good spot in that they're inspecting the step streets that we've given them. And then, so we should have the little stuff knocked out. And then we'll know kind of what the bigger things are, and that's capital. And then they seem to have, they've alluded to a capital schedule of some sort, but we've asked them twice now for like, what's your list? Like when is, like, what year are these streets allocated for what, for when? We haven't gotten anything at all from them. But I agree that right now, I think our budget priority list is kind of serving as our priorities for the step streets. And then it's just important to keep asking for these things to get addressed. But I feel like getting the inspection is the first step, so that we're all on the same page about condition, and that the easy stuff that they should have been doing all along but wasn't on their radar for whatever reason is handled. All right, Kelly, you've got your hand up.
Yes, the 235 in Johnson. I just want to make everyone aware, I'm sure everyone is aware, that that project is going all the way across to the Henry Hudson Parkway. So it's 235th Street from Henry Hudson Parkway, all the way over to, what is it, Oxford? That's by Key Food, right? I believe the street is Oxford. So we should be mindful of that, because even sometimes during the day, the buses are rerouted because they're closing off the street at Henry Hudson Parkway and 235th for that project.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I think that's some Con Ed work. Right at 235 and Henry Hudson.
Yeah.
And
Is that the same? That's the same project that goes closer to Johnson? That's all the same project?
I don't know if it's
No.
all the same project, but it's all on 230. I
Yeah.
will say that. So
Okay.
I don't know if they're the same project or not, but it runs from Henry Hudson over to Oxford.
Okay. So it's really, what we're talking about is that there's just going to be a bunch of paving that's going to need to be done for that whole stretch of 235th, not just a small part right near the new construction.
Correct.
It could very well be just a Con Ed job, but we are supposed to be informed by Con Ed when they take these on. So the office can look into it.
Because it seems like they just showed up and started digging. And they did it during the holidays, no less, just before Passover and Easter. Good timing.
Interesting. Jody, you've got your hand up?
Yes, I'm not sure time frame for this, but at some point, 2395 Palisade, the new building at the bottom of Independence at Palisade, will
Oh, yeah.
be having people move in, and their driveway goes right out onto that very right there. So I think that the stop line needs to be repainted, and I'm not sure if there's enough space to put a crosswalk from 2390 across to 2395. I'm just concerned 55 units. It's a lot of people coming out onto their sidewalk, and the cars, like most cars in this neighborhood, think stop signs are sort of an optional roll through it. So, I think just new paint on there could be helpful.
The construction's not done yet, right?
They completed the lottery for the affordable housing, and they have a website up. So he said the interior is pretty much finished. They're just doing finishing touches. The last thing, they're building some retaining wall at the back of the property. But he was telling me, they're hoping for summer move-ins.
So what we're talking about really is a relining. Was there already a crosswalk there?
There was not a crosswalk there, but there was a stop line. There's a stop
Okay,
sign
is
and there was
there-
a stop line, but not a actually hashed crosswalk. I'm just thinking
Got
with the added vehicles coming in and out of that garage, as well as the people coming out of that building and heading for the bus stop up the hill, that could become a hazard. That was something we did discuss during, the meetings with them.
Well, also,
what's the address again, Jody?
2395 Palisade. And the crosswalk would go from there to 2390 Palisade, which is actually the opposite side of the street and the corner of Independence at Bradley Terrace.
Okay.
Now known as.
David, you were saying?
well, yeah, actually, I thought 2395 was the Bradley building.
No, 2465 is the Bradley
Okay.
building.
No, it's called the
2395
Henry.
is the new one.
The new one's called the
Yeah,
Henry.
no, I understand. I knew you were talking about the new one. The other thing, though, is that whole slope from Independence down to Edsel, I think is so severely deteriorated due to the bridge work, which I don't believe is anywhere near done.
You
need
mean
to get
Palisade, to Edsel, right?
No, it is Palisade Avenue from Independence downhill to Edsel.
To Edsel, yeah. The bridge contractors said they'd be out by the end of the summer, but they were also supposed to be out in December of 2020. So who knows?
Right.
All right, that's still substantial time and substantial work. You see the piles of steel that they're storing that suggests more heavy equipment, more heavy work.
I mean, why don't we, and this is also brand new, I think, to me. I mean, I would like to just take a look at it to even know how to think about it. And so I can talk to Kira, and I feel like, why don't the members of the committee just go and take a look at this spot, and then we can discuss at the next meeting how we want to proceed. And I can also get some more information from Kira about like, you know, what the, I mean, also I just need to look and see if there's pedestrian, existing pedestrian ramps, or if we're actually talking about something net new. So it's 2395 Palisade Avenue. We can just follow up at one of our next meetings. If that makes sense.
Okay, I'll try to send you pictures in the meantime.
That'd be great, Jody. Appreciate that. All right, any other last things on paving? All right, that's exciting. All right, so where are we? Any old business? New business? Ed, your hand's up.
Yeah, I don't know, we really haven't talked about this at a committee level yet. And as chair of public safety, I'm gonna have to deal with this issue as well. It's come up. We mentioned about the hybrid meetings moving forward.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, I have a lot of thoughts on this, but I don't know where, I mean, I don't even know where I'm gonna be next summer, if I'm gonna be part of this committee. My schedule has changed, but every committee is gonna have to make a decision for themselves. And my biggest concern is, you know, the availability of technical support, because I know they just had another a session on this. We got an email from Marty breaking down a lot of the concerns that I looked over, and it just seems like there's going to be a lot of further burden placed on volunteers, essentially. So for me and my committee, it's kind of come down to technical support. Like, what type of technical support are we going to have available? And I guess every chair can look at this differently depending on their own technical abilities or whatever, or how much time they're willing to devote to this. But as far as this committee is concerned, I don't know, because I mean, technically this goes into effect. Well, I mean, we've reserved the option of when we choose to go hybrid, but anytime after June 14th, that's when the state of emergency expires. So anytime after that date, we can technically do this, depending on our readiness. So I don't know if anybody has any ideas, or you, especially yourself as chair, has given this any thought. My thought is that we really need support from Bronx Community Board 8, from our board, with technical support, but you may have a completely different take on this. A couple of the points that came up in Marty's email also was the minutes and recordings. Well, the recordings would fall on the board's end, but the minutes would fall on either the chair or any vice chair, or anybody willing to take minutes, must not, of the hybrid meetings, must be put in within 5 days, which places more of a burden on us than it was before. They have, you know, other issues that I noticed. You know, again, a lot of this stuff is not committee stuff, it's board stuff about ADA accessibility, closed captioning. What else?
Well, being able to see folks' faces, like that.
Correct.
They actually, like, that was a, yeah.
I thought that was a big deal, only because, okay, so what you're talking about, just so everybody understands, is it says cameras must be focused on the faces and voices of hybrid participants, which must be available at all time. No use of substitute pictures at any time, i.e. video off. So in other words, if like I'm participating from home and I have a towel wrapped around my waist, I can't put up my picture. You know, how do you enforce this? That's what, that's what I'm saying. I don't see it being possible to enforce something like that. And then where do you go if it's unenforceable? So that, to me, there's a lot of questions about each committee is going to have to deal with it in their own way. But I just wanted to bring this up because, you know, I know we're going to, I think for last time I heard, we're trying to squeeze one more meeting in via Zoom without doing in person. But I don't know. I just wanted to bring this up because it's something that hasn't been mentioned at a committee level yet. It came up in my committee the other night and I was caught a little bit flat-footed on it. So now I have to give it a little more thought about what we're trying to do and talk to people at, the larger body of people and talk to what the consensus is on what they want to do and any ideas. But to me, it's about the IT support. I know I don't feel I'm going to be sufficiently able to facilitate these type of meetings without any IT support, given my own personal situation. So that's it.
Yeah, no, I hear you. I mean, for us, like for the TNT committee, I feel like that, there's only a couple of committees where the hybrid part seems important because of the size of the meetings that we sometimes have. So, if like that Riverdale Avenue discussion, if that had been in person in December, right, when everybody's got their kids coming home from school and stuff, and that there was a lot of COVID happening, like that, it would have really, I think we wouldn't have had the public engagement, and that's what's really so important. You want to hear from people. Otherwise you don't know really what the consensus is. So, and you want to have that whole discussion. So, I agree with you 100% about technical support. And it just really also, I want to see what the setup is. I want to see how complicated it is. And really just to work through the kinks of like, how do we share, I was able to share this document pretty easily because it's on my computer and I have an individual Zoom that I am controlling that is directly in front of me that I can share it pretty easily, and that you and I or Kelly or David or whoever, we can all individually share because we have individual Zooms that we're communicating with. But kind of what they seem to be describing seems to be almost like where we would be individually doing Zoom, but in a room together, right? Where the committee would have to be and for the folks who are on the call who haven't been following this, the requirement that the Governor Hochul has put down is that soon the executive order will end, and that the community boards will need to meet in person, and that the community board committee members will need to be in person, and that we have an option of having a hybrid Zoom connection that would allow additional participation by the community, but that the committee members would have to be in person. For a small committee, I could totally understand why they wouldn't necessarily, like a small committee in terms of public participation, where you're really talking about 10 people in a room at most. Like even ENS or parks, we have really small meetings sometimes, and that seems like that would be fine to do hybrid, or either depending on the interest, and if you were able to find a meeting location that was near where the interest would be. Like when we did Strong Street Playground, if you're there doing a presentation on Strong Street Playground and they're able to find a place that will host us or let us be there that's nearby, you're like, okay, that's checking all the boxes. We've got an opportunity for people to come. It's close. It's probably not going to be a lot of people. And that's great. But, often we have like things that are in different parts. I don't know how you do a paving list that's all over the entire community board without, like trying to open it up more broadly so that people can hop on and give their 2 blocks and hop off again, I think that's nice, but yeah, it's really going to depend on the setup and how complicated it is and how much schlepping is involved and whether the internet's any good and all of it, I agree with you. I'm nervous, but I'm up for the challenge because I think it makes a huge difference. There are a lot of people who can't come to a community board meeting unless you do it hybrid. And I know even for myself, I know I don't have the option, but that if I put myself in the shoes of Deb, who's not on the community board, it is just so much more convenient. I can work late and then still catch the community board meeting and then still move on with my day and get that extra half hour or hour back. That's going to be in travel time, so I'm sympathetic to it. And also I see Jody's hand is up. she's one of the people I think about all the time because she has, she has debilitating migraines and stuff from scent, and like this has been so important in getting her participation. And I know that there have been meetings where she wasn't able to be involved, and I'm so happy to have her on these calls. And so, Jody, I don't know if there's anything you want to say about the hybrid model.
That's a
Thank
good
you.
tell. You're making a believer out of me.
Thank you for bringing that up. Well, I'm kind of glad to hear you're glad I'm there, because sometimes I'd be like, oh my gosh, she may wish I didn't show up today. But yes, I become very ill when I come to in-person meetings, and I've been sacrificing my health for the community, and I can no longer do that. So, but I'm a little bit confused because the open meetings law has always allowed the community board to allow the public to participate virtually. So that can be done that you can do that. The new law allows the members to participate virtually, but it has to be like some good reason. So it's not going to be an option for every board member. You're going to have a legit reason. And the conversation on the last meeting I was at about it was about, how's the community board going to determine what's a good reason for not coming in person? So I think the board has to figure this out. You have to figure this out, how to do it. And because I think going forward, this is the only way to make a fully accessible community board, because people do work, they can't travel. They miss meetings. I miss meetings because I was too far away. So whether it's you just all meet in the conference room in person as members and the public participates virtually, that could be a simple solution. You just sit so you can see the screen. But that's the other part, is that these meetings are supposed to be videoed and posted as part of the open meetings law. And some of those requirements for minutes are actually part of the open meetings laws too. You're supposed to give 10 days notice to the community for meetings, and you're also supposed to provide within 24 hours of the meeting any document that you're going to be presenting. So the community board hasn't really been adhering to the open meetings law. And a lot of it is about accessibility. So I hope that you will figure out, be realistic about the challenges to it, but figure it out. You guys have figured out harder things in the neighborhood, trying to get multiple agencies to work together. That's harder than this,
Yeah. David,
In the interest of time, okay, we've discussed this at the board. We will spend the summer discussing this. In terms of the TNT committee, it is not a relevant issue until September. I volunteered at the board meeting to work with Kira to make this happen. It's much simpler than people are fearing. I don't think it's worth the conversation now. We'll figure it out over the summer and realize that hybrid is an opt-in option. Okay, so please, let's not spend a lot of time on this in the TNT meeting. There's nothing
David,
that we're going to change. These are all details that we're well aware of, and we're not going to resolve tonight.
No, David, I know. I'm glad that Ed brought it up, because it's just nice to take a pulse check on everyone. Mary Ellen, and then Osvaldi.
Actually have my hand up first, but it is an easy process, because I do these personal meetings that I go to, and a lot of the people are out of state on these Zoom meetings. So I'm from New York and on another state, and it is actually, they have hybrid meetings there, and it actually works really well. So because and for the TNT, having the option of having hybrid is a really great idea, because so many people from the neighborhood can come on and voice their opinion and everything. So, and David's right. Yeah, it's a good idea to bring it up now, but.
Right, but we don't need to, we're not going to solve
5 o'clock in the morning comes around fast for Mary Ellen.
Yeah, no, totally. Osvaldi, did you want to say something, or are you?
No worries. I can bring it up at another time.
Oh, okay, cool. Any other new business? All right then. So our next meeting, as I think Ed mentioned, our next meeting is going to actually be on June 8th at 7 p.m. So it is a slightly different date than it normally is. So that is it. Camelia, did you have a
motion-
question?
Oh.
Yeah, I'm trying. Camelia raised your hand. Did you have a question about the next
Yes,
meeting?
I do that, not about the next meeting, but I raised my question, my hand 30 seconds later. But just,
Okay.
I just had a question about if you heard anything further from DOT regarding scheduling, because or any further feedback from MTA. If you saw the article in Riverdale Press today reporting on CBA Chair Laura Spolter reaching out to MTA and with a letter where they said that they were not informed and they feel like they are not prepared or something along those lines. And I just wondered if you may have had communications with DOT with their feedback on that matter.
Are you referring to Riverdale Avenue?
Yes, of
Yeah.
course, but there's an article in Riverdale Press today, David.
So there's just to summarize, is that that the Riverdale Avenue road diet, as within that context, the board had concerns about whether the MTA was aware of the impact to routes and whether they had been working with DOT. They were not aware of it. But they have said that they're going to meet with DOT and that they, commonly have, work with them, collaborate with them during these types of changes to the road lanes, to the road structure. So it didn't sound like it was an issue. It just sounded like that they were going to be coordinating. And I think it was great that Laura called it out, so that we make sure all the T's are crossed, and that things are done well. So.
Okay, so no
Yeah.
new information, but if anything, I guess you would update everyone at the next meeting, right?
Yeah, if I hear anything, sure, absolutely.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yeah, totally. Thank you for raising it. I forgot about that.
Okay, I motion to close.
Yeah, we've got one motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, there we go. So I move to adjourn the meeting. Have a great evening, you guys. I'll see you soon.
Night, everybody. I'll
Good
see
night,
you on
everybody.
Zoom
Thank you.
or not at
Thank you,
all.
Deb.
All right.